Hey guys, what's going on? Jeff's Reeftank here with another update on my 300-gallon office tank. This update is going to be a little different because there was some major issues that I experienced, and it's turning out that I averted a major tank crash as far as all my corals. But I want to go into a little more detail and bring you guys along for the story, exactly what I started seeing when, but it definitely includes STN, RTN, the change in lighting, and also water quality. So I wanted to just talk about those items and give you a little more perspective of what's happening in my tank or what happened in my tank. So for those that remember and been following my channel, I had a big bird's nest here, pretty much right where that clownfish is. And it was the size of, I would say, a good basketball size. And what started happening, I noticed as it was getting larger and larger, it would start to be dying off on the bottom of the colony. So I figured that was just natural STN due to the size of the colony and more shading happening. That's really what led me to decide to change my lighting, because my lighting really topped off at 150 par at the top of the rockscape, and it went down to as low as 45 to 50 at the sand bed. So it was really something I really want to start growing some more higher end acros in this tank, and the lighting to me was just insufficient. So I decided to upgrade my lighting. But this is not the reason for the major issues. It basically highlighted something that was an issue with my tank, but I'll go through a little more in detail. So besides the 3 bird's nest colonies that I have, pretty much they're all gone. And I can go from left to right here in my tank. But you can probably see here in this Bacillopores, there's one in the back that's pretty much 100% checked out. That's been going and pretty much dying off since January as well. And this one still has a little life, so I'm just leaving it in the tank. As you can see, there's some green there, but everything white is pretty much RTNing, or in this case STNing, from both the base and the tips. So never really experienced anything like this in my tank in the past. What I can really say at this point is it had a lot to do with an issue that I discovered at the end with the help of some reefers. But just going through and showing you what's happening here at the tank. So back in January, a couple of colonies started STNing, and they have since checked out, and I removed them before my last update on my channel, so roughly a month ago. And then the next thing I did was change my lighting. So I'm going to go into another video that shows you guys, but I have 5 Radion Gen 5s on my tank now. I used to have 2 3-foot 8 lamp hybrid LED ATIs, which really gave a different type of light, much more blanketed, a lot less blues, and it was working out pretty well. But again, the par wasn't anywhere close where I needed it to be. So I changed them, and I did not have good connectivity between all 5 fixtures. For some reason, 2 were not connecting, and then I had to manually connect those with the Mobius app, and then another 2 weren't connecting. So once all of them are not synchronized and connecting at once, you can't make any adjustments. So it came out of the box at 50%. So I do have a par meter that requires a PC, and basically what I needed to do was connect that to the PC and do my my par test. So I can only really work on the tank just due to the office conditions on the weekends. So I left it at 50%, and it looked pretty dim throughout the week. So I decided when I did get an opportunity to adjust my lighting, I adjusted the Radions all the way up to 80%, which is a big problem. I learned the hard way. So what I started noticing was on some of the acros, the areas that were facing up towards the light, they started to brown a little bit, looking like there was some die-off. So I said, all right, let me lower the lighting down. I tried for 3 days straight and couldn't get them adjusted until I had to go in and just totally reboot several of these fixtures in order to get them down. So that weekend I did do the testing, and for every 10% was roughly 100 par differences. So right now I'm running the Radions at 30%, and it's similar to my original lighting. So when I had them at 80%, I definitely was burning some of my corals. So that was one issue. After I lowered the lighting, I still noticed RTN happening, or started to notice RTNs happening on the tips. So for example, this acro here, this mini colony, actually the base dying off is something a little bit new, but other than that, you can see all the tips were whited out. So I just assumed that that was part of some of the issues that I was facing. Here's another coral here from the tips. RTN was happening. Here is a couple of other acros. You can see like on the top of this branch, you see the white. That's what started happening originally before the tips started going. So I just thought that was because there's a fixture right above it, that the intensity was too high. So once I dialed it back, I did notice that stopping, but there was still, the tip issue was a problem. So this acro here, really it's real fuzzy. It's almost like a milli. The tip started going even though the lighting was at 30%. So I knew something was wrong, and every day they would go back another 1/8 of an inch, another 1/8 of an inch, another 1/8 of an inch. There would be die off on the tips, as well as one of my prized possessions here as far as coral size and color and brightness. It's looking a little orange in the video, but it's actually almost red or deeper orange. But you could probably see in the middle where there's some white, almost all the polyps on this Monty retracted. So the entire coral looked like it was dead. It was just white. So you could still see the polyps there, but I think what I was sensing was that it was more than likely because of the bright lighting, the shock, the polyps went in. Even during the evening after the lights went off, the polyps would still be retracted. And I just figured, again, it was the lighting. Again, this is right above, and similar to what BRS showed, I adjusted the lighting where the middle fixture is by itself, and then the two extreme lights to the outside, I moved to the outside, and I moved the second light in on both sides in a little bit more, just to spread out the par a little bit, because I know in the middle, based on all the studies, it shows that the lighting in the middle is much more intense because it has it's getting light from all fixtures. So kept on seeing no real improvement after 30%. So at that point I did reach out to Rico from Rico's Aquariums and basically explain what was going on. I didn't really send him any pictures or anything, but explaining the major issue at that point was the tips. So he said it sounds strange, but more than likely the tips are not the issue when they're coming from the tips down. It's a lot worse if you have STN or RTM from the base up. That means you might have some pests or something eating away at your corals. So that wasn't too much of a concern. So I continued just to keep the lighting at 30%, but the corals got worse and worse and worse throughout the week. I did some water changes and still didn't improve. It seemed like they got worse. So as I walk you guys from left to right, you'll see there's another green slimer. This one is a little easier to see. You can see right on top of the branches, including the tips. So you have the tips that are whiting out, and also on top of the branches. That's what started first, is right on top of the branches, more than likely due to the intense lighting. And every acro, especially this one, this is high up, so this is right under two fixtures. So it probably got cooked basically, as far as the intensity that I had set it once I set everything to 80% for 2 days. So right now what you're seeing is a lot more die off. It was basically just the tips, and it looked more like this branch here, but that's since been spreading, and it's pretty much, there's not a lot that was left as far as tissue, so the entire branch is now died off. But thankfully this is slowed, and it's slowed tremendously. I can give a lot of thanks to Tristan from Tristan's Reef, TRSC Corals. He spent probably an hour and a half, almost 2 hours on the phone with me, walking me through step by step and just asking a lot of questions. And I think between us, we figured out that I did some testing while I was on the phone. It had something to do with the source water or the salt water. So what I finally did is I tested, because he said he had some issues with some high chloramines and chlorine in his water. And I said, you know what, let me at least do a phosphate test on my freshly mixed salt water that I keep in a 44 root bin. So turns out that the phosphates in the tank were a lot higher than normal. I think one of those things that happens when you change the parameters in your tank as far as lighting, it affects the other parameters in the tank. So one change affects multiple. So every action is a reaction. So what was happening, so since the corals were upset, they weren't pulling as much nutrients from the water column. So my phosphate seemed to start to spike. So I was always at zero or undetectable on an ultra low phosphate reader from Hannah. So, and the same thing with my nitrates, always at zero. So I tested one day and I saw it was at 4 for phosphates and 0.23 for the, 4 for nitrates and 0.23 for the phosphates, which I've never really gotten any readings on any of those, but I really attributed that to the change in my lighting, which reduction in my lighting as well. So the corals are not happy and not absorbing any nutrients. So immediately cut my feeding in half. There's no algae issues or anything like that. I did add a cleanup crew there, and really no algae issues. But I think that had a lot to do with the phosphates. But when I checked my freshly mixed salt water, the which should read 0, it read 0.13 in phosphates. So to me right there, I knew that was an issue. I wasn't sure if it was actually source water, the fact that maybe some of my RODI membranes and different membranes that I had, the carbon may have been exhausted. He went through the chloramines. He checked the chloramines levels as far as what the city's saying here in New York City, what's saying about what's in the source water. And sometimes he explains, sometimes Tristan explains, sometimes that they change in the summertime. So since I've been doing this since January, I'm not too sure what was happening or seeing the issues since January that were amplified when I changed the lighting. Not too sure what the real issue is, but I know you should never have 0.13 phosphate in your freshly mixed salt water. I did clean my bin out because previously there was a lot of buildup from the last salt I was using, which was reef crystals. So I went to the Red Sea Core Pro for like the last year. And it gets the same thing. There's a lot of buildup brown gook that's in the bin, but I'm just assuming that's the, who knows what it is, but that may be contributing to it. But within the last 2 months, I did clean out that bin, and there was a lot of, it was a little dirty. So, but anyway, so from there, I immediately had to change my salt. So the only salt that's available is the Instant Ocean, or I went back to the reef crystals, but I knew that changing such large volumes of water, reef crystals probably comes in around 12 DKH for the alkalinity, 12, 13, sometimes 14. So I decided to go with the regular Instant Ocean. So immediately, once I went to my LFS, picked up 2 boxes, 400 gallons worth. I have a 300-gallon tank. The water volume is roughly 320, including the sump. So I did 44 gallons, and you could probably see here, all these polyps were retracted. So this encrusted Monte and the green one behind it was basically white. So, and the same thing, like I said, for the branching Monte is also, they were all whites. Immediately, and I did this before the lights came on, I saw some more red coming out of this colony here. and I knew that I was in the right direction. So before the end of the day, I would say 40% of the polyps started to come back out, and the lighting came on and everything started to look a little bit better. But since then, it's stopped. So I've done a total of 400 gallons of water changes on this system. I've seen a big change in the die-off. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed, and I think I found either one or two of the issues. So it could have been the salt, or it could have been that my source water, I haven't changed my carbon blocks in a while. So I've been using the universal carbon blocks, and I still am, and they're only good for 2,000 gallons of before the chloramines will start to seep through the system. And but I do have two carbon blocks, so that I think that would help some. So yeah, I definitely did a full water change here. A lot of it was manual. I did see a lot of stress on the corals as far as them sliming up. So I switched over to auto water change, and I was doing 30 gallons a day as far as the auto water change. And then once in a while I would do 10-15 gallons direct manually. But so like I said, a lot of the die-off is stopped. It's very little now. It's like if the top of this branch has been dying off on the top, in a day or so, it may just, the entire branch may die off. So, but these have been holding steady. Only full branches that have been dying off or have died off and have stopped are these here. So yeah, so I'll give you guys a view from the other side. I didn't do a video as well because I didn't have the filter, and you could not see anything on this tank. So while this situation was happening, so I picked up a filter for my camera, and this way I can give you guys an idea. So you could see some carnage here. Anything that does have any life on it, I'm leaving it, and hopefully it will come back. But some of these corals are really just checked out. I'm seeing some white tips on this plating acro here. I'm hoping that that's growth. Here's another green Monty. This one was doing fine all throughout the process until the very, very, very end. And then right before I started doing water changes, it started to check out, but it's since reversed. Yeah, so this is the other side. So purple stylo of all things, one of the hardiest corals. This is another one that's been dying since January. You can see there's a lot more algae on the bottom. That's the early signs of die-off. At first I thought it was maybe some of my pyramids that were pecking at it, or any of the other new additions to the tank, but I really don't think they have been doing any real damage. They couldn't have done everything that's in here because there was no way it so happened immediately after the water change. So so those guys are off the suspect list for now. But yeah, this green acro is definitely something that one of my prized possessions. So some tips do not have any die-off. You can see them a little lower down, but anything that was on the extremities, you can see the die-off. So another thing Tristan did recommend is that I go ahead and get a bone cutter large enough to remove some of the tips, so we can start the healing process, because it's a little hard for acro to regrow over a dead skeleton. So I'm gonna do that. Some of these it's just easy to take it out, do my snipping, and put it back. So this little mini colony here checked out in a day. It was gone before I started doing my water changes. So this is something I got from Manhattan Aquarium. It's a little harder to see because it's blending in, but all the tips are white, and they're experienced die-off. So yep, and this guy here is one of the first ones to show some die-off on its tips, and this is some of the hardiest corals that I have in here. But yeah, so you've seen it front, back, sideways. Thankfully, I think, knock on wood, I think that I was able to catch it in time. Again, the die-off is very, very slow, but it's not something that really is concerning at this point. It's just more of that it's probably finishing what it was doing. And yeah, so it's time to turn the page. I will be changing salts again. Instead of sticking to Instant Ocean, I will be changing salts again and going with another brand. I'll let you guys know what I've decided to do, but you never know what's in your source water until you test it, and you never know what's in your salt until you test it. So hearing other reefers used to actually check their salt water for parameters before they did the water change. I've never done that before, but it's definitely something I'm going to be doing going forward, just to make sure that you won't have a mini tank crash like this one. So overall, I probably lost 6 colonies, and maybe 10 frag size or mini colonies. So, but thankfully, it was something I was able to talk through and figure out. And yeah, so definitely reached back out to Rico, and he experienced something similar, but I really want to just reserve my full decision and judgment until I can get my source water tested, which I got a Triton test just to check for any nutrients or extra things in the water. So it's a separate test that came out. It's not the traditional ICP. It's another one that checks for any nutrients and stuff in your water. So I'm going to do that. ATI has a ICP test that includes checking your RO water. So I have 2 of those. I'm going to send 1 of those out as well. And I'm also going to check my source water for chloramines, which most carbon blocks don't handle unless you get the universal or you have a special carbon block. So yeah, so that's where we're at right now. This has been extremely stressful just to see this happening and not know what's going on. But half the battle is knowing, right? So you can start to make the right decisions without going crazy and changing everything and still not knowing what you did to fix the issue. So yeah, so it's something that I really appreciate, the fact that you can just have relationships with people that have the experiences, sometimes unfortunate experiences of having tank crashes, and just talking things over with them, and really you don't know until you know, or until you have experience. So sometimes unfortunate circumstances make you stronger as a reefer, and that's what the hobby's all about. Just making sure you can pick up the phone and shoot a text to somebody, give them a call. And I really appreciate both of them for helping me out. And yeah, I think I'm on the right track, guys, now. So I will do another video about the sliding. All the hanging is all temporary. That's not the issue right now. It's making sure that I start to see the coral start to grow again. Once I start cranking up my calcium reactor again and seeing that the coral is still, drawing the nutrients, the alkalinity and the calcium, I know things are going back to closer to the normal. And once I start to see growth and encrustment on more of the corals, then I can really know that I'm past this issue. But yeah, so this was almost a tremendous disaster, and I'm looking at this thing and seeing why, like, sometimes you see reef tanks where all you see is skeletons, because it happens very fast, guys. It really happens fast, and sometimes you panic and may think it's one thing, but it may not be that as an issue. So stability is one thing that my tank has had for the last several years. That lighting is just something that didn't change. I didn't mess with it. There's nothing really you can do. I didn't dim them. Those T5s and those LED hybrids, they were really effective at getting my tank to where it is now. And this one transition is enough to bring out some issues that you had no idea were really there all along. So, definitely something that's a learning experience. And ultimately, I think the tank is going to be better once I get everything reestablished and dialed back in again. All right, so notice this long video, guys, and definitely want to give you guys some of what I experienced. So if you may be seeing the same signs, I won't know definitively until I give you the next update as far as what exactly, based on the tests that I can get, proving what the issue is. It's a little hard to say now, but I know this thing happens fast, and we spend a lot of time as reefers on our tanks, and it could be very, 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 very disturbing to see something happen that's, you really don't know what to do to fix it. So, but I'm glad I was able to catch things, and thank you guys for following along, and I'll certainly keep you updated with the progress on my tank. All right. Thanks a lot, guys. Catch you in the next one.